you for coming and attending this emergency management program. It's certainly good timing. If you've noticed and been aware of the news lately, there has been an awful lot of disasters across the middle and Midlands part of the country. A lot of tornadoes, a lot of severe storms. On June 1st, those of us along the coast will be starting with hurricane season. So it is important that small businesses prepare for any emergency. So to take just a minute to tell you a little about the Small Business Development Center, for those of you who aren't aware of who we are. The Small Business Development Center is a federal and state program. We are funded by Congress. And that's okay. We are funded by Congress and administered by the Small Business Administration. And at the state level, we are funded by the South Carolina State Legislature. And we all have 46, we have 21 centers that covers all 46 counties. The SBDC is a little over 45 years old. You can see some of the you can see some of the activities we've had. And, so that's some of our 2023 results across the state. As you can see, we have a very good impact on economic development in South Carolina. So next slide, Carolyn. Okay, this is the slide with my contact information. If you complete the survey at the end of the program and send it back to Carolyn, then she will forward you these slides so that you will have that contact information should you want to contact me. I am located in the Beaufort area office, and so we are very much in tune with disasters, and especially during hurricane season. Okay, Carolyn? Emergencies can happen at any time. It's very important that we all think about the various emergencies that could affect our business. They can vary from a fire in a business to a major hurricane, tornadoes, cybersecurity, and as of a few years ago that we hadn't even thought about prior to it, a worldwide pandemic. As business owners, you must identify the risks that could affect your business and develop strategies and solutions in order to survive an emergency. Small business owners must better prepare themselves, and the way that small business owners will prepare themselves for any disaster or any emergency is through proper planning. Okay, Carol. A brief overview of what the plan's going to be. We will go over this in a little more detail just in a few slides. But first of all, you want to establish the need for a plan. The fact that disasters can happen establishes that need. If you have a business that's more than yourself, then you need to think about forming a disaster response team. And if you have that team, create or determine a leader who will manage that group and be responsible for it. One of the things all small business owners should be doing at a minimum when insurance policies renew, but at least once a year, meet with your insurance provider, update your insurance information, and be prepared to know what coverage you have. And as we'll see in just a few minutes, how exactly do you file for a claim should something happen? You want to conduct a vulnerability analysis to determine what kind of emergencies could your business face. And again, don't forget pandemics. Cybersecurity is certainly an issue that all small businesses should be worried about and should take proper steps to make sure that their data in their computer systems is completely secure and stored off-site. Don't forget about terrorism. We still have that issue, and civil unrest. You also want to think about what is the probability of any one accident actually happening, and then start preparing for that. Okay, next slide. You want to think about your staff and team members, assess the human impact. If a disaster affects your business, regardless of what it is, from a fire to the pandemic to a hurricane to a tornado, a flood, how will that affect your employees? Can you back up? Yeah, you got to back up. Okay. You have to determine if you do have a problem and you want to keep your employees in this market today. It's important, if you have really good trained employees, that you keep them. If you think your business is just going to be down for a very short term, you should consider whether or not, and if you can, pay them. You want to think about if you have a major event, will they continue to be employed after it? Will you be able to keep employees on if you can't do business? And then how will employees deal with stress, and how can you assist with that? In a major disaster like a tornado that we're seeing on the news, or a hurricane, a flood, your employees will be dealing with stress not only from work but from their home, and you need to think about how can we assist with that. That also goes with an active shooter situation that we still see almost on a weekly basis. Consider time off for dealing with personal after effects. If you live in an area where evacuations happen, like hurricane-prone areas, you want to consider daycare schedules, because once daycare is closed down, your staff's probably going to leave. If they don't have a way or have someone that can take care of the children, then daycare will seriously affect how your staff reacts. And if they have to take care of the children, then they're going to do that, and they won't be there for you to close down your business. Do you want to make sure, if there is an evacuation, that you know where your employees are going to evacuate to? How soon can they come back? And you want to maintain a database that you can take with you that has all their contact information. Lori, I'll answer your question in just a minute. Where I would say that you can assist your employees with something that happens at home, if you're like in a tornado area, your business may not be affected by that tornado, because sometimes they're a very narrow swath, but an employee's house, or maybe several of your employees' homes, may be damaged. So you've got to be sure that you can support them and allow them to do what they need to do to secure their home and make sure their family is secured. Okay. Again, you want to assess the potential property impact should something happen. And you also want to assess what is the impact going to be on your business for any disaster. How would each disaster affect your business? Okay, next slide. Okay, up until 2020, most businesses never really thought about pandemics. We knew there had been some way in the past, but never realized that could be a problem. So when the pandemic hit and the government shut most businesses down, excuse me, many business owners had to deal with that. So one of the things that you need to concern yourself about, especially with any kind of disease born or pandemic, excuse me, is what is your vulnerability to a pandemic? Will your business be considered essential? Many businesses remained open because they were considered essential, but an awful lot of them were closed. If you have to send your employees home to work from home or work from a remote location, do you have the technology for your employees to do that? Do your employees have the technology if you send them home? During the pandemic, of course, all the SBDCs for the most part are in universities. One of the first things to close was schools and universities. So the SBDC we had to all pack up our computers and all the equipment that we needed and all of our files and move to home. And we worked from home for almost a year during the pandemic. And one of the things that happened with our program was that we learned that we can operate remotely. And that probably would not have happened, or it certainly wouldn't have happened as quickly had we not had the pandemic to push that. You need to think about, is your business prepared for enhanced sanitation procedures? Do you have the necessary personal protection equipment that every employee will need if your business opens or if it remains open? And how will you stay in contact with your customers? Many businesses stayed in contact with their customers by social media, Facebook, that sort of thing. Okay, next slide, Carolyn. If your business is required to close, consider these reopening guidelines once you're allowed to reopen. Most people will support the reopening, although during the pandemic, many people thought that everything should stay shut down just for the protection of people, including employees. I had clients who reopened, but their staff did not want to come back. They were afraid to be exposed by customers coming in. So you need to understand that some of the folks you may have to deal with will be your customers as well as staff, even some of your vendors. Be sure that when you reopen, you use only OSHA, CDC, or DHEC guidelines. DHEC in South Carolina is the Department of Health and Environmental Control. There probably will be capacity restrictions, and they'll be based on local code or the fire code. Think about social distancing. I still go in stores today and see the footprints with the distances that you were supposed to keep standing back behind. You want to make sure that you have plenty of PPE, personal protection equipment. It's going to be mandatory: face masks, cleaning solutions, gloves possibly. Your hours may need to be adjusted to accommodate staff and to also accommodate high-risk customer groups. I remember a lot of businesses during the pandemic would open special hours for senior citizens or those folks with some illness that may be exposed to keep them separated from the general population of customers. And remember that you alone will be the responsible person for the safety enforcement in your business. Okay, next. The next outside normal disasters that we normally think of, that is very relevant today, and you're probably hearing a lot more about it, is cybersecurity. It should someone attack, or should you have a problem with your database system, your computer, your website, any of those things, you want to make sure that you have a plan that includes recovery from a cyber attack. Make sure that your hard drive has backups, that you're backing up regularly to a cloud-based or a server-based backup system. Weekly backups are a minimum. Many systems back up more often than that. You want to make sure that you have a cyber incident response plan, and it should be part of your disaster recovery plan. Next slide. The incident response plan, these are some sample components. For example, should something happen, first of all, you want to prepare for it. If something happens, then you identify exactly what's happened to your database or your computer system. You want to try to contain it so that it can't spread, and you then want to eliminate it or eradicate it from your system. Once it's completely out of the system, then you want to focus on recovery, being able to pull your database back up and be able to continue to operate your business. And then the post-mortem is to analyze what happened and what can be done, and possibly what securities can be put into effect in your system to allow a similar incident from happening again. Next slide. And you want to be very proactive with cyber efforts. It's very evident that a lot of businesses don't think that they're too small. Nobody's going to try to get into their system, but it can happen. There is a CMC cyber maturity model certification, a self-assessment that you can take, and if you get the slide, you can click on this at the events at defense.gov, and there are 17 action steps that you can take, and this self-assessment guide will help you determine what you need to do, whether you can do it yourself, whether you need to bring in outside help to help you to make sure that your entire computer systems, databases, and so forth are secure. Okay. Okay. This will get into the details of the disaster plan itself. Obviously, any plan begins with an executive summary, and then that's always written last. So you want the executive summary to be a summary of what the plan is and how the plan is going to work. The first thing is going to be the team. You want to define and identify the team that will be taking care of the emergency management program. As I said before, you want to identify someone to be a team leader who will be responsible for developing and implementing the plan. Most likely, the owners or the owner will be involved with that. They may or may not be the team leader. The owner may assign someone else to take that responsibility, but it most likely will be the owner of the business. Remember that team members can be management, supervisors, department leaders, or they can be the staff. Think about communications. We mentioned before the employee emergency information file. You want to make sure that you have data on your employees, how they can be reached, who their contact is should there be an emergency that you need to contact some emergency notification person. And you want to make sure that's an electronic form that you can access even if you're not in your business. If you have a disaster, you have some problem at your business, you need to think about how your employees will be notified to return to work, when will it be safe for them to come back. If it is a major problem, such as an active shooter or something like that, you might want to figure out who's going to be the person that's going to be the front person to represent the company. News media will be there, and you want to make sure that the information you put out is correct. It is the information that you want it to be, and that it reflects in the best possible light for your company. And then, of course, social media is a great way to put information out about the condition of your company, whether it's operational, whether it's not, and even your employees can be caught up with on social media. Okay, Carolyn. If you have a building and you have employees in your building, you need to immediately think about life safety. If there is a disaster, if there is a fire, if there's something going on in your business that the employees need to be evacuated, you need an evacuation process, you need procedures, and you need routes identified that people can get out of the building. I know if you go in many public buildings, I know in the university, in the hallways, it has where all the exits are. So if you're in the middle of the hall, you could very easily identify which way to go. Should there be smoke or something where you can't readily see the evacuation route. Remember, if there's an active shooter, you should have some shelter in place procedures. I would suggest that if you want training on this, you would contact your local law enforcement and ask them to come and do some employee training to talk about, active shooter procedures, what people should do, what should take place, and how you should do that. And make sure your employees are very aware of that. If you have to evacuate the building, you want to make sure that you have assembly areas and someone to determine if all the employees are accounted for. I know we all remember when we were in school, we used to have fire drills, and we'd all have to get up and go out and stand in the playground or something, and the teacher would always be making sure that everybody is there. You want to do the similar or the same thing with your employees. And then, of course, you want to have, depending on the type of business you have, if you're a manufacturing plant, you want to make sure that you have personal protection equipment for each employee that they would use in the event of any emergency. Next part of the plan is mitigation, which is trying to take care of things before they happen. What steps can you take to protect your building, your staff, and your data before an event happens? Building protection here at the coastal areas, we often see shutters for hurricane protection, that sort of thing. You want to make sure that you have everything in place prior to the possibility of any kind of disaster or emergency event happening. And then you also want backup planning. Redundant backup planning is a must. The more you practice, the more you back up, the more you think about what could happen and how would you react, the better off you're going to be. Make sure that all your employees also know and are involved in this planning. Next slide. Property protection is very important. If you have a business that you're operating outside of a home-based business, you want to make sure that the property, the equipment, your rolling stock, whatever you may have, is protected so that should something happen, it can be replaced quickly. First line there is insurance. You want to make sure that you're properly insured. and that you're meeting with your insurance specialist on an annual basis to make sure that the insurance is current and it meets the needs that you need should any disaster occur. Security systems, you want to consider security systems for your building, so that should something happen, a break-in, a fire, whatever that may happen when you're not open, that you have security systems in place that will notify you and local authorities. Obviously, we just talked about cybersecurity, so you want data protection systems in place, including backups and automatic backups, so that your data is always protected. Cash security, it's important. If you have a business where you have cash and you're a retail store, or you have some business where cash is involved, you want to make sure that it is always secure. Make sure that if you are in an area where evacuations take place, that you know the schedule of the bank if you're evacuating, because as we'll see in a slide in just a minute, if an event happens and it's a major event that occurs across the wide span of your area that you live in and your business covers, you may not have banks. The banks may be not in operation, and there might not be the opportunity for you to either put money in the bank or take money out of the bank. If you have a facility such as a manufacturing plant, where there is a process that the lines have to be shut down, the manufacturing process has to be shut down, and sometimes this takes time. Make sure that you know who's going to make that decision to shut the facility down, because it can be very expensive to get it back up and running. What factors are to be considered before you shut that facility down? And again, going back to who's making that decision. Next slide, Carolyn. Records protection, again, going back to the cybersecurity, but not only that, but paper records. You want to make sure that you're backing up computers. Take backup records with you if you have to leave the business because of a disaster, and always consider off-site backup storage for your data. Cloud-based electronic backup storage is essential, especially for financial records. You want to maintain current digital pictures of your building, your equipment, your inventory. If you are in an area where you have to evacuate, take current pictures before you leave and make sure that they are pictures that you can access. You want to make sure that you have access for personnel files, that your personnel files are all protected and are backed up some way, or you have the ability to take them with you in a disaster. You want to make sure that you always have your insurance policies where you can get to them, preferably stored off-site, so that should something happen, you would be able to get to that insurance policies in order to file claims. And then tax returns. Most folks now get their tax returns electronically, so to be able to have them stored electronically and be able to access them, it's going to be very important for filing insurance claims. Tax returns will be essential if you do disaster loans. The SBA will require copies of tax returns. They can be gotten from the IRS, but in the interest of time and speed, you having the tax returns when you're filing for a disaster loan will speed up the process much more. Okay, Carolyn. Be sure to register with your local emergency management director to make sure that they know who the owners of the business or the management team that you want to be allowed back to re-enter into the area. If there is a disaster in your business, or if you are evacuated and you're coming back, you will make sure that the local emergency management is aware of who is allowed to be back to your business. The state of South Carolina, through the South Carolina Emergency Management Division, has a reentry program where you can sign up so that if your area is evacuated, you would be able to re-enter, but you need to be registered so that the authorities that would be guarding the entrances will be able to access that data to determine if you're allowed to get back in before general public. Beaufort County is a little different. Beaufort County has its own reentry program. And so if you happen to be in Beaufort County, you've missed it to register this year. They registered between January and April, but you must be registered with the Beaufort County Emergency Management Services in order to be allowed to get back in before the general population is allowed. You want to give serious consideration if you can operate the business if the building is destroyed. Can you move to a different location? Can you operate out of the tent? How can you operate your business should your business be destroyed or not be accessible? You want to have access to all the necessary equipment needed to open an alternative location if you can do that. Thank you, April. April has the Beaufort County Reentry Program in the chat box. You want to make sure that you have generators available, computers, tents, tables, seating, portable restroom facilities, whatever you need to operate your building from a remote site should something happen. This is especially important, like where we're seeing the disasters with the tornadoes, as it would be if there was a hurricane. If the building is not, if your business building is not available or you can't operate from it, you may have to operate from a remote site. And so you'll make sure you have everything necessary to be able to do that. Next slide. Insurance claims. Again, I can't emphasize enough meeting with your insurance specialist. You want to have the necessary proof to file a claim, including your policy, and you want to know how to file. What do you do? Who do you call? Who do you contact to file a claim? If you're in a recovery mode, you want to also have sufficient cash to pay employees and operate the business. Remember that in a major disaster that affects the community, checks may not be accepted, broadband may not be operating, so you may not be able to do credit card transactions. So cash will be king. So you want to make sure you have enough cash to operate your business. Again, going back to the emotional support and physical needs of your staff, you'll make sure that they know that you support them and you'll do whatever necessary to help them get back into their homes, to make sure that they are emotionally secure and can come back to work and work in an effective manner. Okay, next slide. One of the things that is important if you're in a retail business is to have support agreements with suppliers to be sure that goods and inventory would be available in the event of a problem. My wife and I used to own some restaurants here in Beaufort, and one of the things that we did was we had an agreement with our primary vendor for all the food that we got, that should electricity go out and we not have coolers, or there should be a problem with our coolers, we had an agreement with them that they would bring a refrigerated truck trailer down and set it up so that we would have inventory so that we could sell. Remember the recovery resources that you'll need should there be any event that affects your business. Insurance is your first line of defense, so you want to make sure that you have good insurance coverage that will keep you operational and know how to file claims and know what the process is and how quickly you can get funding. Cash reserves, most business owners want to make sure you have cash reserves to operate your business for a short period of time until some of these other resources kick in, like insurance. If your business is able to reopen and operate, will you have, can you do enough business to have sufficient cash flow to operate your business? And then, of course, if it's a major declared disaster that is declared by the president, then SBA will come in, and as will FEMA. And SBA has a disaster program. They have a loan program, low interest loans that cover both material, equipment, buildings, that sort of thing, and economic injury, such as loss of business. And then in many communities after a major disaster, there's local assistance available. The city, the county, the state may have some assistance that's available to help you. Okay, next slide. For service-based businesses, predominantly a lot of things we talked about in previous slides were for businesses who are retail or manufacturing, something like that. But in a lot of cases, service-based businesses are out there. So if you have field equipment like trucks, trailers, and so forth, you want to plan to have access to backup or rental equipment should an emergency happen and your equipment is damaged. If your building were to have a fire and the equipment is damaged, your trucks are damaged, can you rent equipment to continue operations? If there's an evacuation, you should have a location away from the danger area to move all your equipment where it would be safe and secure. And also an option would be to consider having the staff that uses that equipment take it with them during an evacuation so that when they come back, they've got their equipment, they're ready to go. Also consider having access to two-way communications. If there is a major event, hurricane, tornado, something like that, where there's wind involved, cell service may not be available. Okay, Carolyn. Remember that only planning will enable a small business owner to be able to survive a major disaster. The better prepared you are for a disaster, the better chance you will have of recovery. In the event of a major disaster, it is important that small businesses recover. Our communities will need every business to survive in order to recover the prosperity and viability of the local economy. And that is a very, very true statement. If the businesses can't survive and can't be reopened, then the local economy is going to suffer. And the quicker you can get back up to help with that, and other business owners get back up to help with that effort, then the whole economy will improve and get better. Okay, Carol? And remember, the only way to survive any disaster event is to be prepared. Business owners who are not prepared generally don't survive a disaster. There are statistics that come out on a regular basis of what percentage of businesses survive after a major disaster. And it's usually a very low number because businesses don't tend to prepare for any disaster event. So make sure that you're not amongst those that could not reopen because you didn't plan. Remember to plan, prepare, and that will create survival. Next slide. Some resources that are available. You can see that there. The Department of Homeland Security has a lot of information about preparing for disasters. We have information on our website, scsbdc.com. SBA, if they are called in a major disaster and they're going to be doing their funding programs, you know, they will be the SBA website, sba.gov. Homeland Security is also where FEMA. You can access information about FEMA will be in the Homeland Security Department. South Carolina Emergency Management Division, you see their website. And then the Insurance Institute for Home and Business. This is a really good website about making sure that your insurance is up to date and you're well covered and can do most anything you want to do. Next slide, Carolyn. Before we take questions, I just want to also introduce to you April Wilson is on the call. I saw that she put some information in the chat box. April works for the South Carolina Department of Commerce, and she is the emergency management person. She also works with the South Carolina Emergency Management Division. If there is a disaster and the South Carolina Emergency Management goes into one of their OPCONs where people are brought into the emergency center, April would be the person there representing the South Carolina Department of Commerce and business and small business. So April, welcome. And if you want to say anything, you're welcome to unmute and say hello.
Martin, thank you for that introduction and for just allowing me to say hi. I want to thank you, all of you, for being on this call, because that's one step closer to being prepared. And Martin, you covered a lot of good information. I can't express enough how valuable it is to have the Small Business Development Center in your corner. They also assist us during disasters and in recovery. If there's ever anything you need, feel free to get a hold of them or me, because we tend to refer people to one another. I work very closely with also Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, CISA, SBA. So if there's anything I can ever do, please feel free to reach out. I'll put my contact information in the chat. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, April. Thank you. Thank you for attending. Thank you for all that Commerce does to assist small businesses. Okay, going back to questions. I know there was a few in the chat box that popped up, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to just unmute and ask the question. I'm happy to try to help you and answer the question.
Martin, this is Lori. I just wanted to let everyone know that the DOL that I put in the chat is Department of Labor, and I was an investigator there for a number of years, and even during COVID. And some of the questions that we had coming in were concerning pay, you know, during the time that people were home and different things like that. And you know, the general rule for our state is that you have to be paid in full and on time. And so what that means is that if people are working, no matter where it's from, they have to be paid their regular rate. Now, something that was kind of unique to what we're talking about is if you appoint someone as a manager or someone having special duties, like the disaster relief manager, you can opt to pay a different rate for that. It does need to be in writing, and it does need to be 7 days prior to it taking effect. And that's for businesses that have 5 or more employees. So if you know you have someone that you really like and trust, you might want to pay them more. you know, to do that kind of a job. And again, put it in your terms of employment, which if you have any questions about that, the South Carolina Department of Labor has a wonderful website. They have a frequently asked questions section as well.
Lori, thank you. And Lori is one of our consultants she is located in Newberry. So Lori, thank you for that. Well, again, thank you all for attending, and